Hi, I'm Margaret Lewin and welcome to Margaret Lewin Quilting. Today we're going to work on our block number 2 from our springtime sampler. Now don't forget we're using Robin Pickens fabrics, and the block we're working on today is block number 2, which is actually a 9 patch. And you can see I've got all my fabrics kind of messed up, so let me group them back together the way they go because I've been playing with them. This fabric right here is fabric number 12. This fabric is fabric number 10. I'm going to lay out fabric number 10 first. And it's very simple, just a patch in all 4 corners and then one in the center. So I'm going to put my center one there. Here we go. That's the first fabric. Now our second fabric, as I said, is fabric number 12. And here is our fabric number 12. I'm just going to lay it out nice. And how I'm going to put this together is in the same way I always do a basic 4 patch or 9 patch. I try to continuously sew them as much as possible. So I'm going to sew this to this. I'll sew my 2 middle rows, and I'll sew these rows. Then I will go about adding the 3rd row to it, so I'll have 3 strips. At that point I'm going to stop and I'm going to press these, and I'll come back and show you how I'm going to do that, and then I'll put my 3 rows together. So this is our block number 2. I'm going to go get it started and then I'll be back to show you some more. I want to show you something that I do whenever I go to continuously sew. There is a function within their system that makes it really simple. And it's called the hover function, and I use it quite a bit. So I'm going to first set it up, show you how I set it up, and then what I'm going to actually do is demonstrate for you how it works. So the very first thing I'm going to do, you can see I'm working on my B790 Plus Bernina. First thing I'm going to do is I'm going to come over here on the right and I'm going to touch the gears. And when I touch the gears, my display is going to change. The next place I'm going to touch, I'm going to describe it to you as straight lines and zigzags. I'm going to go into there. Now the next thing I'm going to touch is this function over here, which is the hands pointing to the lines, the little dashes. And what this is doing is taking me inside many of the different functions within the Bernina, things that you can program. Things such as your reverse stitching, your cutting of your threads, your presser foot height, and then a couple other things, how you tie off. This is the one that we're interested in this time, and what this is our needle down function. The needle down function is something that I always have engaged when sewing. It doesn't matter if I'm working on garments or if I'm working on anything. I like my needle down, and what that does is when I stop sewing, my needle stops down instead of up. So if my material was to move at all, it's really not going to, because the needle is down in the fabric. So I'm going to touch my needle down, and what happens, you can see here, is 3 different functions within the needle down function appear. So what that means is the only way this will work is if you have engaged your needle down, and I'll show you where that is on our home screen. So here is our needle down. That's indicating that that must be engaged. Then we have 3 different options within it. The first one is what's chosen right now, where my needle will stop down and my presser foot will be down. The second option, if I touch it right here, this second option means that my needle will, when I stop, my needle will be in the down position, but my presser foot is going to lift just a little bit, not a lot. The third option is the same thing. Your needle will stop in the down position, but your presser foot is going to lift substantially higher. I don't want that one. What I want is this one. this is the one I'm going to choose, the one where my needle will stop down, my presser foot will lift just a little bit, and then I will be able to add fabrics underneath it to continuously sew. So now that I have chosen the hover function that will just slightly hover, I'm going to now click my X in the upper right corner, and now I'm back to the main screen again. This is one right here of the multiple places that you can elect for needle down. And there it shows right there that my needle is engaged to stop down. So that's where we are at. I'm going to change the position of the camera a little bit so that you now can watch how I'm going to use this function within my Bernina 790 Plus. I'm going to try really hard to stay out of your way so that you can see exactly what I'm doing. But I've got my fabrics. I'm going to put my two fabrics right sides together, line them up real nice. And if you feel like you need to pin them, go right ahead and pin them. That's fine. I'm going to line up my fabric where I need it to be. And then I'm just going to touch my foot control. And you can see it brings my presser foot down and I can start sewing. So here I go. I'm going to sew this piece. When I get to the very end, you can see my needle went down, and look at, automatically my presser foot came up. So now I can grab my next two, and I can do that again. So I'm again going to touch my foot control, and I was a little bit too far away, so I stopped after one stitch. Now I'm going to engage my foot control again. And you can see now I can just keep right on sewing. Alright, I've come to the end, and I'm going to grab my little scissors that I always leave next to my machine, and I'm going to clip the threads on my first piece. I'm going to take this one, I'm going to lay it right back where it was, and I'm going to grab my next one. Line these up, and you can see that my presser foot is all ready for me to start sewing again. So I'm just going to line these up and just start sewing again. I'm going to cut the first one that I did, or actually the second one that I did. Put it back in my row. Now I'm going to go back to my very first row that I sewed and attach this one. So this will mean that my first row is complete. I'm going to go stitch all the way to the end again. One more stitch I want. There we go. I'm going to cut the thread that held my third row together. Now I'm going to grab my second row, do the same thing, that middle row, line it right up again, and off I go. My very last row, lining it up, and off we go. Now I'm going to cut my thread because I am completely done sewing all 3 of my rows. I'm going to cut these 2 apart. Look at, I want you to see that. Look at, that's all the extra thread it took. That's it. It was fantastic. So now I've got these lined right back up again. And I'm going to take these over to my pressing table and I'm going to get these pressed. I'll see you in just a second. I've got all 3 of my rows sewn together. So now I've got really nice rows. Now at this point we have a couple of choices that we can make. We can either press our seams open, press our seams to one side, whichever we want. In this instance, I am going to press all of my seams to one or the other side. On this block, you could pick to press them all towards the pink or all towards the green. Absolutely up to you. I'm going to elect to press them all to the pink. So the very first thing I'm going to do is set my seams. And then I'm just going to press them. Now you can see I've held onto this side and I'm just going to press them over. All right, then I'm going to press these over. There we go. So here's row 1. You can see I've got nice flat seams. Now row 2. And again, I'm going to press it towards the pink. Actually, this is row 3, isn't it? And again, just press it towards the pink. I'm going to stack that one right on top of there for a minute. And now I'm going to press these. And again, I'm pressing it right towards the pink. So I'm going to hold on to it, press it to one pink. I'm going to flip it around and press it towards the other pink. All right. So now I am ready to put all 3 of these together to make my next block. But I want to show you how I'm going to go about pinning these. So let me grab a few pins. I'm going to flip these around together. I'm going to take a few pins. I've got more than enough here, but I want to have plenty. I'm going to pick this up and I'm going to take these 2 seams here and I'm going to butt them together. Make sure that they're good and tight, and then I'm going to pin it. And in this instance, I'm going to pin on both sides. Really don't have to pin on both sides, but just to be safe, I'm going to. So those are lined up. Now I'm going to do the exact same thing here. I'm going to fold these back and make sure that they're butted very nice and tight together. On this seam, I do need to pin these together. And the reason why I do, I'll show you in just a minute. I'm going to start by pinning on this side. Then I'm going to pin on this side. And you can see what I'm doing is just catching that seam allowance from both pieces. Now the reason why I have to on this side is because as I sew, we're going to stitch along and we get to here, this seam allowance is going to push these 2 together tightly. But you can see when we come down to here, it's not going to, because my seam is right here. It's not going to, the presser foot's not going to aid in pressing them together. So by sticking this pin in here and holding down this seam allowance, it should not flip over on me. And it should keep a nice flat and should butt those 2 seams together very nicely. So I'm going to take this over to my sewing machine and I'm going to sew these together and then I'll add that one in. Then I'll come on back and show you the block. Here's my block all sewn together. So now it's time to press it, and you can see how I pressed it before. Everything went towards the pink. What I'm going to do this time is, first I'll set my seams, then I'm going to actually press my seams open. So I'm going to set my seams first. Next, I'm going to grab my strip stick, which is right here. I'm going to lay my fabric right over it. I'm going to take my fingers and I'm just going to open this up. And then I'm going to use the very tip of my iron. And I'm just going to press it. And you can see that I'm kind of opening it a little bit with my fingers, but I'm mostly letting the tip of the iron do its job. And it is opening my seams for me. There's my first seam. And now for my second, do the same thing. I'm going to open it up with my fingers, and then I'm going to allow the tip of my iron to do its job. Right, there it is. I'm going to now lay this out, and I'm going to grab my Mary Ellen's Best Press, and I'm just going to give this a little spritz. Little spritz, let it sink in just a little bit, and now I'm going to press it. And that's it. Block number 2 is done. And block number 2 again is our 9-patch block. And now it is actually time to move on to one of our pinwheels. So I will see you again really soon right here at Margaret Lewin Quilting, where we are working on our springtime sampler, which is our 2019-2020 block of the month. So I will be seeing you back here again really soon. If you haven't already, please do subscribe. And if you like this video, please do hit the thumbs up button. Thank you so much, and I'll see you again soon. Bye.